I'm about to ask what project she has and what are these apocalyptic consequences, but she walks back into the art classroom. Since you have nothing to do, would you give me a hand, she says. This paint can doesn't fit into my bag, but I need it. She kicks lightly at a huge can of paint that's lying on the floor next to the table she was sitting and sleeping on. It lets out a dull clang. Being the gentleman I am, I naturally pick it up. Heavy. Yeah, sure. Where do you need to take it? Away, she answers. And with that, she takes off to the hallway, me and the paint can following, since there's little choice for either of us. The hallway is quiet and empty now with Shizune and Misha gone, so we too leave toward the stairwell at the other end. Every 10 or 15 or 20 steps, I have to change the can from one hand to another because the thin handle cuts into my palm. At least it keeps my arms from tiring too fast. Rin strolls on beside me with an uneven pace that I have trouble matching, or maybe I am walking weird because of the extra weight. It seems one of us is constantly walking too slow or too fast, and I can't figure out which. 2 flights of stairs below, trouble appears in the form of the head nurse and his fox-like grin. Ah, Mr. Nakai, what a happy coincidence. Tezuka, too, of course. He nods courteously to Rin, who does not acknowledge him back, then turns to me because obviously it's me who he had some business with. There is something I forgot to mention on Monday, he says. I nod and wait impassively because I can't even begin to guess what he forgot. The feeling of the handle delving deeper into my skin doesn't make me enthusiastic about this interruption either. It's about your medications. Since you haven't been that long on your current medications, there might be some unexpected side effects, which might require adjusting dosages or even changing to another kind of medication. So we will do a few tests regularly, but what I'd want is for you to keep an eye on everything in your condition that feels off, if you get what I mean. Nausea, headache, anything, and come to see me if something happens. All right, I answer. So how are you? He continues. Everything fine? I give up and drop the can to the floor before answering him. Apparently this takes longer than my biceps can handle. I'm about to say something generic as an answer, but then I realize how often I've done that lately. Other people have asked me that too, teachers and students here, my parents, visitors, nurses, doctors at the hospital. Everyone seems to be concerned about that. It's natural for a hospital, not so much for a school. Except this school. This is a small school, and both the student base and the faculty seem to be very tightly knit. At least that's the feeling I'm getting. And this is not the kind of school that gets transfer students too often. The thought sends shivers up my spine, but I give a generic answer anyway. That's great, the nurse says. Also, one other thing. My sources tell me that you've been at neither the school track nor even the pool, so I'd like to know if you've taken up exercising as I asked. Of course I haven't, but his way of inquiring gives me the feeling that I should have been running my ass off on the track since the very first day. You have people spying on me, I ask? Not as such, he says. I just happen to know a few people. But that's not the issue here, so don't try to slip out of it. Well, I say, I was actually just doing some improvised weightlifting as an exercise. I pick up the can, lift the can up and down a few times like some sad imitation of a bodybuilder, even though it's weighing down my arms painfully. The stupid grin disappears from his face for a second, then comes back like it was never gone. Tezuka, he says, would you give us a second? The nurse grabs me by the shoulder without waiting for Rin's permission, which he didn't need in the first place, and drags me aside. When I told you to exercise, I wasn't joking, he said. I understand that you are still on your first week and all, but please don't ignore the importance of this. The reason I'm coming down this hard on you is that habits are not easy to form. The more you slip and postpone, the harder it'll be. It's the same with everything, like dieting. Can you promise me to be more serious about this from now on? Yeah, I promise, I finally say. Definitely. He studies me for a moment and then shrugs, smiling again. Okay, that's more like it, he says. If you go to the school track tomorrow morning, you'll meet my spy, who probably has no qualms offering consultation to you if you want to jog a bit. Consultation, I ask. See you around, he says. He leaves with a wave of his hand and no answer, and I walk to Rin, who has been waiting, idly leaning against the hallway wall and staring at the pale lighting fixtures in the ceiling. Even when I approach, she doesn't move her eyes off them. Are you getting medications for your heart thingy, she says. Were you listening, I ask. It comes out more accusatory than I intended, accidentally lashing out on her. But even so, I don't really want to start talking about it. I just met her. I don't know her. It's not her business. The nurse seems to be happily ignorant about confidentiality, too, talking about that kind of thing in public. But it's not Ren's fault, is it? I look up at her, suddenly feeling a bit guilty, but Ren is just staring past my shoulder quizzically, her head tilted like a bird's. I don't know why this is so hard for me. It feels like there is some inexplicable lock that prevents me from being more upfront about this. Yeah, I say, they're for my heart. Will they make you better? She asked. No, not really. They just make me a little less worse. Rin keeps looking at me for a while longer, and she neither says anything further nor displays any kind of emotion that I can discern. I'm thankful that she doesn't. I think I'm still not quite used to all this. At the hospital it was easy, but I still haven't sorted my feelings about having to live a normal life with this disability. We leave the main building, and Rin leads us onwards toward the dorm. We stop at the small patch of greenery in front of the dorm building. The dorm is built on a slightly elevated ground with a wall and a few trees that everyone has to circle around every time they come or go. It's probably the only inconvenient design in the school. The entire wall, made of the same kind of bricks as the building itself, has been covered with some sort of a painting. Most of it is still mere sketches, quick lines drawn with black and white against the gray plastering that covers almost the entire length of the wall, but some places look a bit more finished. There are human faces and legs and hands. I can't quite say what the painting as a whole might portray. Stacks of what seem to be paint cans are arranged in piles on the ground beside the wall. See, the left side is hardly off the ground yet, Ren says. It's because I couldn't get in the mood yesterday, so I gave up and went to meditate instead. Then it was suddenly morning. I have to work on it, but the guys from art class are helping with the negative spaces and base surfaces which is a problem. It's easier to paint big areas if there are a lot of people, with hands. The reach is better, and it's faster, too. She goes on a tangent of a tangent, waving a little with her arm, or whatever of it there actually is, to demonstrate, even though I got the point already. The white cotton of her sleeve flaps around, and it makes me think it could look sadder than it does. But it makes me feel out of place, like almost every tangible reminder the student base's special properties has in the past few days. This girl doesn't notice my dreary feelings, of course, or the fact that she lost me a while ago already, and just keeps on blabbering. So that's why I'm trying to figure out if there's something I need to figure out, and then figure that out before it's too late and all hope is lost, she finishes. Why would the hope be lost, I say. because paint has to be painted, and then it has to dry, and then it has to be painted over with another kind of paint. It takes time. She finally stops, apparently thinking she made some kind of statement that makes sense. I think it's best to start from the top. I ask her, "So, this is your project? You did this?" Yes. All of it, I say? Yes. Nice, but... I stumble with my words, suddenly feeling like I've walked straight into the minefield of political incorrectness. It's okay, you can say it. I probably won't get mad, she says. I blush really hard. I don't really know what would be the right thing to say, if any. It feels that I'm way more sensitive than Rin is, though. This is really awkward. Don't you want to ask, she says. Finally, I say, how do you paint without hands? See, I'm an easy person to talk to, right? With my feet. I almost guessed that already, I say, but isn't that hard to do? You're good at guessing. Anyway, I don't think it is, but maybe I'm used to it by now. I can't get my mind around the fact that she could be an artist, but seeing how adept she was with using her feet to eat, I figure painting might not be a problem either. Neither of us has anything more to add to the subject. The afternoon light works pretty well, she says. I was afraid it would look too flat, but it's not like that after all. I think it's actually pretty interesting. I wanted to see what it looks like in dim light. Do you think it's flat? Well, paintings tend to be flat, I say. Not like that flat. You know, flat. Like some people are. No substance. No meat where there should be some, she says. I know a few girls who... Okay, I get it, I say. But I couldn't really tell. I'm not that good with art. I can't name many artists or artistic terms. So I don't really have anything to say. Rin shrugs her shoulders at that, saying, "Suit yourself," without saying it, and looks up at the sky as if trying to look for something up there. Finally, she continues, "I didn't think I'd get any actual work done, but if you give me a hand with the paints, I could get a little before it's too dark." I wanted to get a halogen lamp like the ones they have at the sports track, but there aren't any. Rin sure is quick to recruit my help, as was Shizune. It really makes me feel that the festival is such a big project that every pair of hands is needed. Why not, I say. I'm not really sure if I can be of any help, though. It's just mixing some paints. You can do that. Probably. Do you have motor control problems, like you know those people who have some? Cerebral palsy, maybe? Not that I know of, I answer her. I get it. Heart thingy has nothing to do with that. She gives me a sly look for no reason. No, it doesn't, I say. Let's do it then, she says. So she sits on an empty wooden box and very naturally picks up a wide brush between the toes of her bare right foot. I open a few of the cans and pour some of the contents into shallow bowls for mixing. The thick paints flow lazily from the can to the bowl, like syrup. I mix them, creating funny, hypnotic-looking swirl patterns that melt quickly into each other to form a new monotone hue. Rin sets to work, every now and then asking me for a hand with something or the other. Finding different brushes is easy enough, but mixing the paints to be the exact tone this girl is apparently seeing in her head is a frustrating ordeal. She wants precision down to the last millimeter before she is satisfied, but her instructions are obscure at best. Add half a splash of green, she says. I crouch down to pick up the can of bright green. The other green, she says, this green. I carefully pour some of the other green paint into the mixing bowl. No, she says, that's almost a whole splash. More white. Is green a good color to add, she continues. No idea, I ask. You're the artist here. A hint of a smile appears in the corners of her mouth. Do you lack an opinion, she says. No, I say, it's just that I have no idea. It's okay, she continues, because I just got an idea. Add more white. With this exclamation, I pour a minuscule amount of white into the bowl and mix it. It looks slightly whiter. That's not good, she says. It has to be like the color when you wake up and you know that you saw the meaning of life in your dream, but you can't remember it. Maybe it's yellow. Despite the impossibility of mixing a color like the change of seasons or any other nonsense that's being imposed on me, I find myself enjoying it more than I thought I would. Seeing a painting being born on the plastered wall feels like magic. I spend the moments I have between mixing paints crouching down on the paving and just looking at her art. It feels slightly intrusive at first, like breaking some imaginary intimacy, but Ren doesn't seem to mind in the least bit. Maybe it's just in my head. Her entire presence emits a completely different air as she patiently works the details, adding layers of paint on top of other layers of paint, steadily moving her foot across the wall to add new shapes. When I manage to produce a passable mixture of paint, the rare smile on her face is oddly rewarding. Apart from the few words when discussing paint mixes, neither of us says a word for the longest time. And even those short discussions soon evolve into a shorthand, both of us developing and using weird impromptu code words for various paints and hues. As if there was some need to conserve words and breath and sound. We stay there late into the evening until it becomes too dark to paint properly. The sound of an alarm pulls me out of a fitful slumber and into the unpleasant state of wakefulness. I linger under the blankets for a few minutes, gathering energy to rise up while making excuses as for why I haven't already. Honestly, I wouldn't mind staying here for all day. School is surprisingly exhausting after a long pause, and the culture shock still has not faded, I think. Still, despite getting an impression that skipping class is easy here, I don't think they are going to let me get away that easily. And the nurse is bound to keep breathing down my neck with the talk of exercising as well. So eventually I do rise up, swallow the morning medications, and put on my old soccer clothing. Thanks to my condition, I was exempted from taking part in gym classes at Yamaku, so I didn't get issued with a gym outfit. I'd order some to cover such a contingency, but wearing my old soccer clothes is kind of nostalgic. I can't use them for that anymore, so maybe they can get a new life this way. A bit like me. After all, if I'm going to start taking care of myself, I can't afford to slack around. I'll start from the basics. Basics which include keeping the rest of my body in shape along with what little I can do to strengthen my heart. Maybe then I can go back to something approaching a normal life, or at least something where I'm less likely to fall over dead at any minute. I'm surprised to discover that I'm not the only one present at the track. Not just that, but it's a face I've seen before. The prosthetic-legged girl who bowled me over in the hallway yesterday is running on the track lithely, like a half-mechanical gazelle. What was her name again? It was a short one, but I can't remember. She seems to be running laps at a somewhat easy lope, her prosthetic legs clacking rhythmically on the hard track surface. I wonder what reason she has for running this early in the morning. Maybe it's something akin to mine, and the nurse is oppressing the poor girl to jog, just like he is oppressing me. I certainly wouldn't be here if it weren't for my health, and his prompting me to do so. And even with things being like they are, it's only because I wanted to get it out of the way early. The fact that I would be less likely to encounter someone who would witness my pitiful attempts to get into shape was merely a happy accident. I'd leave, but it seems that my former assailant noticed me on her last lap. She waves at me cheerfully and jogs over. "Good morning. Your name is Hisao, right?" She grins, seemingly pleased that she'd remembered my name. "You may not remember me," she says. "Amy? I knocked you over in the hall yesterday?" "Miss Ibarazaki?" She imitates Misha imitating Shizune, failing to get the same kind of subdued lilt into her high-pitched voice. I tell her, how could I forget such a, blunt introduction? Amy has the decency to look vaguely apologetic for a moment before giggling. "Yeah, sorry about that. Again." Well, so long as you don't make a habit of it," I tell her, "I suppose it'll be fine." "Great," she says. I'm not sure she realized I was joking. I ask her, "So the spy consultant the nurse was talking about, is that actually you?" "That's right," she says. "Oh. I was expecting someone from the nursing staff, to be honest." "What, are you saying I don't look like I could be a spy?" she says. "No, this is more like a relief," I tell her. "I was afraid he would have someone to watch my every move. Unless you are here to do exactly that." "No, I'm here for my own reason," she says. "The nurse just asked me if I'd seen a messy-haired transfer student who looks like he's kind of lost around the track." "So why are you down here?" I ask. Amy strikes a dramatic pose. "Training," she says. "For what?" I ask. "Track." "Ah, I see. You're on the track team then." Amy nods enthusiastically. "Yep, I'm one of the better runners too." And modest about it too, I think. "Hey, you should join up," she says. "It's good exercise, you know." I think that much activity is probably out of the question for me. "Nah," I tell her, "I'm not even sure that I really like running all that much. Plus, I'm just not into organized sports, you know?" It's true, I never even really got that much into soccer. I mean, I'd run around with my friends and all, but that was really the only reason I ever played. It wasn't for the glory to be found on the field, that's for sure. Amy seems to understand my meaning. I see, she says, not that into the whole organization thing. "But now that you're here, I guess we're going to run together, huh?" "What?" I say. Sure, I guess." Amy seems pleased. "Are you going to warm up?" she asked. "Real men don't warm up," I reply. "Oh no, you should always warm up. Bad Hisao." She scolds me enthusiastically, but then smiles and leans closer. "I hate warming up too," she confides. She laughs suddenly. "Heck, and I don't even have to stretch my legs." As if to confirm her statement, she bounces up and down a couple of times, giving a passing impression of standing on a pair of springs. Her leg blades seem to be quite elastic. "Let's go," she says. So we both take off around the track, and I can immediately see that she wasn't lying about being good at running. Amy moves fluidly, throwing herself into the run with a sort of wild abandon. I find myself concentrating more on running properly. Hands spread, right? And something about hitting on the balls of your feet rather than on the heels. I try to match my stride to Amy's, but it's pretty difficult. Apparently, I'm not very good at it. Maybe Amy could help me with that sometime. I'm really not feeling up to more than a couple of laps today and slow to a walk pretty quickly. Amy keeps running and doesn't seem to notice I've stopped until she passes me a second time. She quickly skids to a halt, breathing steadily in contrast to my own somewhat gasping demeanor. "Finished already?" she asks. I hang my head ruefully. "Yeah," I say. "I'm not in very good shape right now." Amy nods and then grins at me again. She seems to do a lot of smiling. "Well, the important thing is that you started, right? Next time, you'll just have to try to hold out longer, and then longer, and longer, and eventually you'll be great." "I'll keep that in mind," I say. "But I think right now I'm going to go get ready for class." "Shouldn't you?" Amy shrugs unconcernedly. "Nah, I've got plenty of time." I notice that she's not wearing a watch. "Are you sure?" I say. Another careless shrug. "Not really, but I've got to finish my routine." "See you later, Hisao." Yeah, see ya." I'm not sure whether this morning's experiment was a success or failure, but I'll admit that I do feel slightly good about getting out there this morning. And like Amy said, I just need to keep at it in order to get better, right? Practice makes perfect, or something like that. It's nice at least to feel like I've taken some semblance of control over my own health. I'll have to try to keep this up. And we get stopped in the hallway by Nurse, who has a surprising lack of confidentiality skills there. Right here is one of the deciding questions in the game. This one, the yes or maybe, is what decides whether or not we go on the Amy path or not. You have to answer yes, and that takes you to, gives you the flag that allows you to go to the Amy path. You can still get off of it. You can still move on to the path with Rin or with Shizune and them. But if you don't answer yes, you won't go down Amy's path.